Welcome back to Hardball and the Politics Fix. Tonight, we're joined by MSNBC political analyst Howard Fineman of Newsweek magazine and Bob Herbert of the New York Times. Let's take a look at some of the words here. Here's President Bush with two of his memorable statements.
I don't care, dead or alive, either way. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. There are some who feel like that, you know, the conditions are such that they can attack us there. My answer is bring them on. We got the force necessary to deal with the security situation.
And here's President Bush. Here's President Bush now on CNN with some of his regrets about making those statements.
I regret saying some things I shouldn't have said. Like dead or alive, or bring them on. You know, it was, and by the way, my wife reminded me that, hey, as President of the United States, you better be careful what you say. I mean, I was trying to convey a message. I probably could have conveyed it more artfully. You know, being on this ship reminds me of when I went to the USS Abraham Lincoln, and they had a sign that said "Mission Accomplished." I regret that, you know, that sign was there. It was a sign aimed at the sailors on that ship. However, it conveyed a broader knowledge. To some, it said, well, Bush thinks the war in Iraq is over, when I didn't think that, but nevertheless it conveyed the wrong message. So there are things I've regretted.
Well, Howard, I guess we've been through that, but I think it's interesting that it takes his wife to tell. Doesn't he have people at work that sort of warn him? I do. I can tell you. My producers tell me immediately when I make a mistake, and I make them a lot. But isn't that funny? He brings it home to kind of a situation comedy. Well, my wife said I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, well, my dominant impression here is of a president of the United States who's kind of checked out. He's already in the locker room with a towel around his neck, you know, giving his interpretation of the interceptions that he threw. You know, it was a tough game. He's still president. As Barack Obama has said, we only have one president at a time. Yeah. This guy's still the president. We've got an economy cratering by the minute. And he's sort of having fun rewriting history and joking about what his wife told him. It's not a confidence-inducing thing. I don't mean to be harsh here, but we still have a ways to go here, and every minute counts in the economic situation. And this guy, I think, has checked out many, many months ago. He's counting the minutes till he gets out that door, but he's still got a job to do.
Bob, that's a question Howard suggested if something's falling between the cracks here, it's us. It's the United States of America. Because if the auto industry goes down and we have 3 million jobs in jeopardy, that could create a macroeconomic disaster. And, of course, if this financial thing isn't straightened out, and it doesn't seem to be, where Paulson is moving the money around and not really telling us what mandate he's operating under, whether he goes to you know, clean up the mortgage problems, or he does something else with the banks at a greater level, at a higher level. I mean, who is in charge?
You know, I think maybe I will be a little harsh here. The president seems to be concerned about style points or public relations, how he looked when he made what he saw as inartful comments. But you know, it might have been better if he had some regrets, like perhaps some regrets that related to the war, or maybe he was sorry about the way he handled the nation's finances, or if I'd be happier if he were a little sorrier about extraordinary rendition and prisoners who were tortured and what that did to the United States' reputation around the world. I mean, the United States is in a deep, deep fix here, and President Bush bears a great deal of responsibility. So there's more to be regretful about than a few inartful comments.
Well, that's why you're one of the great columnists today. Howard, I agree. I mean, I was falling into the trap of trivialization along with our president. He led me into that valley of absurdity, as if it really matters whether he committed this faux pas or that, when we're talking about a United States of America, which is in terrible shape. And I could argue morally, because of a lot of the issues that Bob just raised, morally about torture, rendition, war, unjustified war, death by the tens of thousands of our own people. Certainly people, if you add them up, the casualty rate in Iraq is in the tens of thousands. And he was either morally right or morally culpable, and that would be an area of confession that might be more relevant.
Well, I agree, and I agree. I was led down that path just as you were, and Bob brought us back to reality. But I also think we don't expect any real confession or self-knowledge from George Bush, at least publicly expressed. At least publicly expressed. Most other normal human beings would be wringing their hands at this point, but it's both a virtue and a huge drawback of George Bush that he refuses either to look back or to look inward, it seems. And so I guess I wasn't ever expecting, certainly at this point, before he leaves office, any kind of true soul-searching on the part of this man. Soul-searching does not seem, or political soul-searching does not seem to be in his makeup, so that's why I wasn't even looking for it.
Well, we're obviously at the cross-section of horror and hilarity right now. The horror being so horrible, it's hilarious, and that's a problem with my soul. I can't deal with this level of horror. It begins to be just gallows humor. Anyway, we'll be back with Howard Fineman and Bob Herbert with more of the Politics Fix. You're watching it on Hardball. We're back with Howard Fineman and Bob Herbert. Before we get to Sarah Palin's return to greatness tomorrow in the Republican Governors Conference, let me ask you, Bob, this question about an interregnum. We have a lame duck situation now, which could be pretty horrific. One president's on his way out. He's checked out, as Howard says, psychologically. He's on his way back to Crawford in his head. And yet we have 3 auto companies going down. We've got a financial crisis, which driven the market down again 400 points today. Is nobody in charge right now, and nobody will be till January 20th?
The president is supposed to be in charge, obviously, but I think that there's a real crisis of confidence on top of everything else in the United States, especially among consumers. And so everything that Barack Obama does is going to be spotlighted. So I think that he has more of a responsibility during this transitional period than most president-elects. You
know, we got Sleepy Hollow as a country right now, and the Headless Horseman running the show, Howard. I'm worried. I don't think we have a president who's clearly on deck, coming or leaving.
Well, that's why they'll name Obama, I think, is going to pick a Treasury Secretary very soon to try to calm things a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much, Howard Fineman. Thank you, Bob Herbert. Tomorrow